Hi, I'm Cash, and welcome to Monday Night Live. Are we actually rolling? Did I get it right first time? Let's find out as I spend the next 20 seconds, as you well know, trying to find out if I'm actually live, and I think I am. Fantastic. Well done, Cash, for not messing it up like you normally do. We say that, but yeah. Well, we've got a couple of topics to go over tonight. Well, there's loads of topics for us to go over tonight. I'm just going to give you a bit of a rundown of some of the things that I really want to go over. I do want to go over this Kylian Mbappe lawsuit and tie that into the financial regulators of the Premier League and what this really means with what's going on in football. I'm going to talk a little bit about, some of the things that's going on with Liverpool and how you fix a team that's struggling. What's the main things that you do? Okay. And there's lots going on with these little Boxing Day fixtures and all this, the player welfare and all this other nonsense in football with footballers. But first off, we're going to talk about the results of the weekend, go into a little bit of that, and what we really need to take away from some of these results. You're not going to like it if you're a Forest fan, because I think there's a little bit of a problem with the old saying that Forest did well on the weekend is fine. But you're really going to find out if Forest are actually doing well against Brighton this week, because I think that 3-0 win at Liverpool says more about Liverpool than it does Forest. I think Liverpool are a club in a complete and utter disaster at the moment. And also I want to talk about Newcastle, because I think Eddie Howe's did a great job to get that win against Manchester City. Now, there's another club, I think, Manchester City, that everyone is saying is doing better than they really are. I don't think Manchester City's back, and you could see that against Newcastle. You could see that they were kind of struggling, really, to actually sort of do anything at Newcastle. And I think that's sort of very indicative of how this Manchester City rebuild is coming along. I don't think they're anywhere near up to the levels that they were. And I think this season is Arsenal's all the way through to lose. We're going to find out at the end of the Christmas period. There's not that much that's really going on this weekend. I know Palace have won 2-0, and there's a couple of other fixtures and Chelsea have gone through, but everyone's beaten Burnley, so it doesn't really matter. The Bournemouth West Ham fixture was probably, to me, one of the most interesting ones, because Bournemouth are doing really well, and it looks like Nuno is doing great at West Ham. I think that's a really good point for him, even though he was in a position where he was winning. But yeah. Let me just get my little doofer. Oh, there we go. Also, don't forget, let me just start over on, we are over on Twitch. If you've got an Amazon Prime account, you can always chuck me a sub over there if you want to support the channel. But I haven't had the time, and I really want to repost that Super League video, because I think no one is really paying much attention to these financial regulations, what this Kylian Mbappe lawsuit is going to do to the Premier League, and what all this nonsense is just noise that's going to drive everything towards the Super League. And as I said back then 2 years ago when I did that video, that they needed to unite the fans. The only way you can get the Super League to happen is if you unite the fans. And all of the fans across the Premier League are united against the referees. Everyone's getting bad decisions. Let's just call it what it is. Sometimes it goes for your team, sometimes it goes against your team, but it's always a bad decision. And there's people from either teams calling it out all the time, saying, "Oh yeah, even though I'm an ex-fan, it's definitely a goal, or it's definitely not a goal." It's just terrible, and that is driving towards the Super League. But I think there's a bigger fear that's going to help push that, and it's these financial regulations and financial fair play. I'm going to keep my toe here. Can you see the Super League coming? Let's just go on to a little bit of a rant about that, because I do want to talk about this Kylian Mbappe lawsuit, all right, first, which is going to drive into that, right? It's a bit of a kerfuffle, this lawsuit, and I'm going to break it down for you, obviously, lawyer. Right. What they're really trying to maybe I'll give you a bit of a background of these financial regulators first, okay? So what they're really trying to do on paper, it's a simple job. They're trying to stop the smaller clubs going bankrupt and protecting the game, and making sure owners don't gamble with their club and get them in debt and all that sort of stuff, which sounds all right, okay? That sounds decent on paper, but there's a problem that no one actually knows what power they've got, how they're going to use it, and how that's going to be implemented. Because if you look at Newcastle, the richest club in the world, they can't use any of their money or any of their power because of the hampering that's supposed to be protecting the smaller clubs. Now, I want to go on and explain how you can actually fix a lot of the problems financially with football with one rule, by the way, just one rule. They won't do it, but it's just one rule. Because they want to really sort of cap the spending, and that's what's going to bring into this Kylian Mbappe lawsuit that's going on. Like they're saying you spend 85% spend cap on these. Like, it's all nonsense, because we all know Chelsea, Barcelona, PSG, all of these people have broken all of the rules over the time, and nothing really happens. They might get a ban in the transfer window or something, but it doesn't really matter. So they overspend in the other, transfer windows. But ultimately, I don't think any of this is going to stop the smaller clubs going under anyway. Now, I know a lot of these smaller clubs and these places. A lot of fields that I play football on are now little housing estates. And these fields are next to nothing. You're talking to buy the field and put it in a trust would cost 800,000, and it's there forever. That's less than Kylian Mbappe earns in a week. So in this lawsuit with Kylian Mbappe, which is absolutely maddening, by the way, when you actually try to figure out what's going on. So with this Kylian Mbappe lawsuit, he's suing PSG for 55 million euros. They're countersuing him for, now I've heard there's a couple of claims here. They're countersuing him for about 400 million euros. And they've got a couple of good points legally. They're saying that he kept it under wraps for 11 months that he was leaving. Okay. So they could have sold him in the January transfer window, possibly netting 200 million on Kylian Mbappe, plus the other image rights, bumping it up to, whatever. I saw the figure about 280 million euros, not for the 440 that's being claimed now. If you say 280 million euros, if you think it's transfer fee and image rights, and okay, that would probably make sense. Now, the other part about that is Mbappe didn't take 3 months' wages. That was 55 million for 3 months. That's about 18, 19 million a month. That's insane. Myself on the juicy stories won't be able to. There'll be a couple of juicy stories, but you have to watch Man United against Everton. 2-1 Everton. You're gonna hate me, DC. 2-1 Everton. So Mbappe didn't take his wages for 3 months, and that was a kind of gentleman's agreement that because he was leaving for free, he let them have the 55 million. Then he turned around and sued them and said, "Oh, well, you didn't pay me my 55 million. Now I want it." And now they're saying, "Oh, you had a gentleman's agreement that you were staying." So both gentleman agreements can't be a thing. Either there was none or there is one. You can't be suing, and he can't be suing if there wasn't this gentleman's agreement. So it's going to be very, very messy. But more importantly, it's going to hit these financial regulations and these financial people that are trying to stop ridiculous things happening to save the small clubs. All right, that's going to be the weird thing. United are wearing red. I will take my chances. Oh, yeah, okay. Good luck, buddy. I'm probably only going to go for about 45 minutes tonight because I might be catching the second half of a certain Man United Everton game. I just wanted to get a couple of points out before I disappear. I just want this on the record, really, about these financial regulators, because I can just feel that all of this is pushing towards the Super League. This lawsuit with Kylian Mbappe and PSG is going to be a monster. It's not going to go away. And what they'll do in the UK is point to that and say, look at that. That means these clubs in the second division could get hit. What? But that's the crazy way that these people's mind work. They'll use any excuse to change that for what some little tiny club whose whole wage bill is 750,000 a year, and say, "Oh, look, we're protecting this club because of the Kylian Mbappe lawsuit." That's how people in government work. They're insane. And I can have a feeling that this is one of those things that they're going to point to say, this is why we need to protect the small clubs. small clubs aren't spending 55 million on wages in 3 months. Like, they don't need this any of this protection. The club is at fault, yep, for deferring the wages. Are they, though? Because if there was an agreement with Kylian Mbappe to defer the wages, and they've got that because Kylian Mbappe was leaving for a free, are they at fault? Because Kylian Mbappe said, no, you can keep my wages because I understand financial fair play, and you're going to pay me afterwards. And then after I leave, then you can pay me to sort your books out for financial regulations. And they've gone, okay. Or did Kylian Mbappe say, I understand that you can keep the 55 million because I'm off to Real Madrid and that's basically my transfer fee, because I know you're in the hole here. So I'll let you, I'll just take the bullet on 55 million. We don't know, because I can see both things being true. I can see Kylian Mbappe thinking that they're going to pay him, but saying that don't, because I'm leaving for free, and coming back for it afterwards. I can see all things. And also, why is it a year later he's suing them? He's been at Real Madrid for over a year. Why is he doing it now? Why didn't he do it, 6 months after he was at Real Madrid? So it's all a bit fishy to me. There's going to be another reason. I guarantee you there's going to be some more stuff coming out of this lawsuit. But all of that is going to impact the financial regulations that they're going to impose on this new, whatever this government agency is that's got no money to try to look after the Premier League. Now, how you fix the Premier League with wages, which you don't need to, by the way, it should be a capitalistic market. If the rich clubs want to spend and the rich billionaires want to spend billions, go ahead. Because there's one weird thing in football. It doesn't matter how much money you spend. Ask Liverpool. You can still lose. So it doesn't matter. The lower leagues, the lower tables, yeah, there needs to be probably some spending caps and some sensible things looked at and talked about in those areas. And putting a wage cap on your players is really, really easy. But you've got to be careful with the wage cap. Because I believe in capitalists, spend all the money you want. But if you word it slightly like this, and I did the research on this in one of my old videos, probably about a year ago. And I said, if you put a wage limit of 100,000 per week, it wouldn't affect anybody out of the top 6 clubs. And we say the top 6, like basically the Chelseas, Uniteds, Man Cities, Arsenal's, Liverpool's, and it's Tottenham as well. They spend the most. They're the only clubs in the Premier League that have players that get paid 100 grand or more. And what you say is, we can only pay you 100 grand if you lose a game of football. If you win a game of football, pay you what you want. You're 350,000 a week, Mo Salah or Bruno Fernandes, or whatever. Go ahead. But if you lose, you're capped at 100 grand. What that means for the lower level clubs is they are also now in a situation where they can go, yeah. If they lose, though, the most they can give you is 100 grand. We can match that. Can they? No, not really, but they're close to it. They could probably match 75, 80,000, and they can get that. There's thing that it opens up the minds then of people going, well, if you run and you sit on the bench and that team keeps losing, you're going to get paid the same over there at Chelsea that you are over here at Sunderland. Maybe I don't go to Chelsea for my big payday, because my big payday doesn't count now. Because if they start losing, like Liverpool are, all of a sudden you can only get that league, maximum. Now I'm just throwing those figures out. You can move those around, change it around any way you want. You can change something for draws. If you draw a team, the club can do what they like. Clubs, there's lots of different ways. But that's one simple rule, and all of a sudden it changes the whole landscape of the Premier League. But if you did that in the lower tier teams, it would also have an impact. And maybe it's 30 grand, maybe whatever it is. But that makes the players play. You couldn't have a Garnacho and a Marcus Rashford earning 300 odd grand a week and not playing football for United. Couldn't happen. Because the maximum they could get paid is 100 grand. Right, you want to down tools? Great. But you can only get paid the league maximum of 100 grand a week, which we all think is absolutely crazy. And we'd like that to get paid that a year. And they're getting, and that's why I think these financial regulations is going to be one of the biggest stories by this time next year. And it's all sort of slowly happening without anybody really talking about it, because we're so focused on all these VAR decisions. And let's be honest, it's so much nonsense. What was it? I saw, I haven't covered as much games this weekend as I wanted to, but I was seeing so many dodgy VAR decisions. I think that someone scored a goal and it was, it might have been against Liverpool, and it was almost, it wasn't identical, but it was more in the line of sight of the goalkeeper. I think it was Liverpool. I can't remember, to be honest. And there was another handball for Forest that wasn't a handball. I mean, it's not. Yeah, it's so bad. The team in blue has given a red. Have they? Don't tell me Everton have got a red card already. Has that happened? Do I have to check this? DC, are you making me go and check something live? Is that what you're doing? Oh my God. 13 minutes in, someone's got a red card. Oh my, yeah, United are going to run away with that. It could be 4-1 United now. Easy 4-1 for United. That's unbelievable. Yeah, don't give away. Okay, I'm going to come on to Liverpool quite a bit, but I do want to give some Eddie Howe a bit of praise, because I was, dogging on a little bit last week that his team as well isn't performing as well as they were last year. You can see they're a little bit off. And I know that they're going to talk about player welfare, but I think that's a bit nonsense. I have a huge thing with injuries in the Premier League. And the more sports scientists the Premier League has, the more injuries the Premier League gets. That should tell you something. Back in the day, you were allowed to kick players, punch players, do all sorts, and they could fight through it. They were always playing covered in bruises and knocks and whatever. Now you can't touch a player. So what happens is they're getting different types of injuries. There's little impact nicks and knocks that they could recover from week in, week out, made their body stronger. They could play, and they could play, and they can play. Now when they get an injury, it's a twang, it's a snap. Because there's none of these little, you can't knock, touch, or do anything to anyone. So a lot of their injuries now are way, way more severe than having a load of little tiny niggles that you could play through, because the game was a battle. It was hard. It was tough. Men were fighting each other. You don't have that anymore. So it's a sprinting injury. It's almost like an athletic injury now. It's not a football injury. It's very, very different. And because the game is changing, that's going to get more and more apparent as time goes on. You can fix it, but they won't. There's a way you fix that with stretching, but they really don't know what. Let's go on a bit of. This is how much they don't know about stretching. Okay. Ryan Giggs, Michael Owen, and Steven Gerrard had the same problem with stretching injuries, right? They won't be honest about this, because they won't like the fact that they're completely wrong about everything, as always. So when they're in the youth system, you should not stretch your players under the age of about 14. You shouldn't stretch them. They did. They were stretching 12-year-olds and basically elongating the hamstring off the back. There's a reason. Muscle grows quicker than bone when you're younger. So the bone hasn't grown yet, but the muscle has. And then you stretch the muscle, but the bone doesn't grow. So now the muscle is elongated. So the muscle's always stretchy and it doesn't fit quite right, because they overstretched them when they were kids. True story. And they don't know what they're doing really in this sports science world about stretching and all this other stuff. They claim they do, but the data shows that they don't, because otherwise there wouldn't be as many injuries. Did you notice in the Newcastle game, they were using goal line technology? The players... That goal, by the way, I didn't cover that game. I didn't do a video on it, but I think that goal's offside. I really do. I looked at that goal and I thought he was offside. Straight away I went, he's offside. Not even questioned, just he's offside. Cash did yoga. Actually, yoga's, oh God, yeah, yoga's really, really good for you. But yoga's real. I can't do yoga. I can't touch my ankles, let alone my feet. No way. All my hamstrings and back is so done. Like no. I wish I could do yoga. Yeah, that Newcastle goal I think was actually offside. That City scored. I do. It was bit awful, but we digress. Yeah, so they were stretching Michael Owen and all these players out so much when they were younger, and their muscles were longer than their bones by the time that they actually hit their growth spurts. Happens all the time. I mean, the damage coaches do to players is unbelievable. But let's go on to this Liverpool thing, because I might just wrap up a little bit early, do a little 30-minute stream tonight. Because I've really, as you can probably tell, my mind's not in it. I'm a little bit all over the place. How you get a team that sucks like Liverpool playing well again, it's really, really easy. I also thought it was offside. Yep, yep, yep. Automated offside. Really? Was it? Was it automated offside? See, but this is the problem. They'll turn around and go, oh yeah, but look at this goal that was offside that Manchester City had scored on them. So all the other 55 things that happened for Manchester City don't count because of this one. And that's the division that they want in the fan base. They can rally the fan base together to push to the Super League. So when you're a team and you're doing poorly, I've got this kind of little coaching rules in my head, and I don't always stick to these, by the way. It's like most coaching rules, that it's just a guideline. It's like the Pirates Code. It's more of a guideline, really, right? So when you're coaching, when something goes wrong, you do not tell the player that they've done it wrong. They know they've done it wrong. They don't need you to tell them that they've done it wrong. The Everton red card was dodgy, really? Ooh. Okay, I'm going to have a look at that. Yeah, I'm going to have to look at that. Dodgy red card. I might have to, wrap it early and look at a bit of that. So when a player does something right, you tell them. Think of a bucket, okay? Shall I use my drawing tool? Where's my drawery tool? I'm so bad with this drawery tool. Let's see if I can get ready to draw with my drawery tool. Here's my drawery tool. Right, think of a bucket, okay? Every positive thing you put in one line, every negative thing drops you down 2 lines. Okay, so that's where you'd be every time you say a negative thing. So you need to fill this bucket up with positive things. Remember, every time you say a negative thing, it takes you down two runs. It's a game of snakes and ladders, really. That's what you want to think about it like. So if you're constantly telling people that they're doing bad things, you're constantly in a negative spiral. So if you've got a football team like Liverpool, same thing happened to United last season, and you're constantly ragging on them, you're just constantly keeping going down into that pit. They're under pressure as a team. If your team's under pressure, they know they're under pressure. You don't need to go in a training and tell them they're under pressure. What you need to do is release the pressure valve. Like I've said before, I've had teams play tag in warm-ups before, just to let the other team know we don't take them seriously. And also to relieve the pressure off my team. Yeah, because they're having fun. Football's about fun. If your team's not having fun and not enjoying the game, they're going to clam up, they're going to freeze up, they're going to make mistakes. So you need your team having fun again. So when you're in this losing streak, don't take the losing streak seriously. But you do. What do I mean by that? Training session? Nah. Your team won the league. You know how to defend. Your team won the league. They know how to score goals. You don't need to run another drill. You need to play a game of tag. You need to go and goof off. You need to release the pressure. Have fun all week. We're going to have a blast. Get back and see how the game goes. Because I'm telling you right now, the more you double down on that negativity and the more you put pressure on, they're under pressure, and you keep adding more and more pressure, the further you keep falling. And if you want an example of it, go look at Manchester United before Ruben Amorim, even the first year of Ruben Amorim coming in. Everything that they did was negative, and it kept the spiral going down and down and down and down. And you had a coach who said, no, just going to do it my way. Going to get rid of the Rashfords and the Garnachos. Going to do it my way. Kept going down and down. No, doing it my way. Being positive. No, doing it my way. And slowly it starts to build back. It's the only way you can get out of it. Because it's a slippery slope. It's easy to learn to lose. It's hard to learn to win, by the way. That's another thing. But you know, Liverpool's already learned to win. Because you know that from last season. So into 2 or 3 games, you can get back to that routine again. From Nottingham Forest's point of view, great 3 points. Brilliant. It should have been 4-0, by the way, Forest. Should have been 4-0. And you needed that. And you need again to win on this weekend to go forward. But you didn't have to play well to beat Liverpool. You did all right defensively. First and second ball, really well. Maintaining possession, not so hot. But you don't need to against Liverpool. Liverpool are their own worst enemy. So it doesn't really say much about Nottingham Forest growth. This weekend will. This weekend will really let us know where Forest are. Because thankfully they're out of the relegation fight now. Just here looking at the league table, and that really helps them. I mean, if they can get another win this weekend, they're right up there. I mean, they're only 1 point away from Liverpool. That's hilarious. They're digging their way up. We all know Wolves is down. We all know Burnley's down. And we probably all know Leeds is down. Why? Because West Ham's now starting to pick up points. Yeah, that's probably the end of it for these last 2 clubs. Thankfully, Sunderland will stay up. which I think is great, but the rest of them I think are on their way down. Other than that, guys, I might just call it a night, just because I might go and try to catch this Man United Everton game. And I am going to be putting out more videos this week from the Champions League. I'm going to try to do almost all of the Champions decent games. There's some really good ones coming up. There are a couple of more points. Oh, no, I'm going to talk about this, because if I don't, I'll forget to talk about it. And I'm going to use it again. I'm going to put it in when I start explaining how I do mind maps and stuff on those videos. If you watch those where I explain like my pizzas and all that sort of stuff, how to build a football teams. And what I do is I collect dots of information. So, for instance, when I was talking about these lawsuits and these financial regulators, what I class that as is a dot of information. I don't make an opinion up on it. What I do is I get as many dots as information as I can and see what the picture is. Okay? Stand back and look at the picture of these dots of information. Don't try to have an opinion on a dot of information. So, PSG lawsuit, VAR, automated offsides. Look at the dots and see what picture it's making of football. And that's where you can see where everything's moving forward. Now, you can do this with anything, by the way. Oh, did he slap him, did he? Okay, we'll have a look. We'll have to have a look. We'll see. We'll find out. So, when you start looking at anything in life, you can start putting dots of information down, and you can start building a picture. And this is why you can really see if a club's in trouble, or is it just a blip, or that sort of stuff. And we'll take the example, because we were talking about Liverpool. Let's have a little look. Okay, there's dots of information. They're not scoring goals. Problem. Dot 1. Okay, they're conceding too many goals. That's 2 dots. The team's not working. That's 3 dots. Immense amount of pressure. That's 4 dots. And as you can start seeing, is the pressure because they're not scoring goals and conceding goals? Yeah, so we could probably take that pressure away, because it doesn't really matter for the picture. And if you do that, you can start building a picture of anything, and you can really start to get down to the I was going to say the guts, but it is the guts of the problem, and you can actually really start to understand what's really going on in the bigger picture. The more dots, the more information you have, the better picture you have. It doesn't mean you agree with the dots. Remember that. Other than that, guys, I think I might just knock it on the head, and see you next time on Cash Talk.